In Walmart's Who Newville, joy started to grow. For online-only savings sure to steal the show. Tech treats and toys so dazzling and new. Walmart Cyber Monday deal soon ready for you. It's online only with very little time to spare. December 1st will soon be here, so be sure to be there. The Who's are prepared. Are you ready too? A day packed with savings. Amazing! Who knew? Subject to availability, terms and fees apply.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. You're ready to move your business forward, but first, you need to find the right team. Start your search with Indeed-sponsored jobs. It can help you reach qualified candidates fast, ensuring your listing is the first one they see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. See the results for yourself. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Hi, and welcome to the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. My name is Bill Moore. I'm the Executive Director of the National Street Food Vendors Association, which is a nonprofit dedicated to education, advocacy, and uplifting all food vendors. Today, we're going to be talking about the age-old question, food truck or food trailer, which is better? But before we get into that, if you're listening to this on 12/1 of 2025, tomorrow, I'm going to be at the Food Truck Owners Expo in Edison, New Jersey. So that's December 2nd and 3rd of 2025, where I'll be giving 2 classes. Once the classes are over, I'll be out on the main expo floor where you guys can join me in my National Street Food Vendors Association booth, and we can just hang out and have a great time. You can share your success stories or ask us any questions. Again, Edison, New Jersey, December 2nd and 3rd of 2025. And if you'd like to attend, go to FTOexpo.com, place your order for those tickets, and when you do, put in the code FTTG15 for a 15% discount. Now, the age-old question, which is better, food truck, food trailer? So let's start with the basics. If you work in an urban setting where you're going to be driving a lot in downtown areas where you have those tight streets, you're going to be parking to serve an office building and then moving on, you want a food truck. You're going to be doing fairs and festivals, you have multiple day events, you want a food trailer. You're going to be doing catering where it's very weekend heavy, and you've already got a tow vehicle, well, trailer makes sense for you. If you're working where the seasons change, goes very hot, very cold, you do lots of driving in between short shifts, might be a solo operator, a food truck is going to be your best friend. Very first comparison everybody wants to know is which one's cheaper and can I finance? So let's start with the food truck. An actual food truck is going to be more expensive because you're buying the kitchen with the drivable part together. But that makes it easier to finance because it is a single unit. So there is that consideration if you're having to finance. Easier to get financing, and it's also easier to get better terms because of it being a commercial vehicle. Trailers, on the other hand, are going to be a little bit less expensive because all you're doing is paying for the box itself with the kitchen equipment. But remember, you got to get it from point A to point B, so that means you need a tow vehicle. So if you already own an SUV or a truck that's capable of pulling something that's 10,000, 13,000 pounds, you can go for a food trailer. But I've seen a lot of people spend $70,000, $80,000 on a food trailer and then spend another $40,000 or $50,000 on a truck to tow it. And now they're up above what some beginning food trucks would have been. So here's my rule. Consider the full system, not just the kitchen. You want to include the wrap, the generator, fire suppression, small wares, and then add about 10% on for contingency. So no matter which one you go with, remember to add those things in too. So now let's talk about capacity. A food truck is usually shorter in linear feet, so that means it's going to be tighter on the inside. It's going to be faster to heat up. It's going to be faster to cool off, though. It's great for high turn items, something you can make very, very quickly. Trailers are more cubic feet per dollar, which is a good investment size-wise. It's easier to put 2 fryers and a 36-inch flat top with a steam table without being overcrowded in a trailer because, again, it can be much longer. If your menu needs multiple stations or you need a bulk storage area, well, the trailer is going to be your better bet. Now let's talk about mobility or maneuvering and just getting the thing set up. A truck, you pull in, you level it, you open the window, it's super quick, you're ready to go. Parallel parking is realistic with a food truck. May take some practice, but it can be done. A food trailer, on the other hand, backing into tight alleys is an art, and it takes a lot of practice so that you're not damaging the trailer itself. Setup's a little bit more complicated because you got to chock the wheels, you got to have stabilizers, you got to put down and retract, and it's going to be more time. So once you're set up for the weekend, It's your home base at that festival, so it takes a little bit more setup time. So let me give you a reality check if you're trying to decide. If you envision most of your setups being 1 or 2 hour setups and then you move on, food truck's going to be the better bet because you'll be able to get in and get out quicker and start selling faster. If you're going to be there for the longer haul, say 3 to 4 hours at a time or days at a time, the trailer makes more sense. Now let's talk about the one key point that everyone brings up, and that's downtime. If you got a truck and the engine or transmission goes down, the whole restaurant is in the shop, which means you're not making any money. Yeah, there's stories about people that do in a tow truck, and you see it on the Great American Food Truck Race, where they tow the vehicle around. Yeah, it's a great story, but it's not practical, and it's certainly not inexpensive. By the time you get it towed 1 or 2 times, you could have paid for the repair work to begin with. So that is a real risk. If the engine or transmission's down, so is your business. The trailer, if the tow vehicle dies, well, you can borrow or rent. And yes, you can rent a vehicle to tow it. Why do you think U-Hauls have the tow hitches on them? Because they know you're going to be towing stuff with it. The kitchen stays intact and you're able to sell. But I always have a backup. We know people we can borrow a truck to move our trailer anytime we want. Now, we have a truck, but if it breaks down, I've already got people that have trucks that are big enough that we could borrow. And we have 4 different places we could rent from. There are friends out there. There are places to rent. Have yourself a backup plan before you ever need it. Now let's talk about weight and axles and safety. A food truck, the builder handles the gross vehicle weight, and then the weight distribution's kind of already baked in. On a trailer, you have to respect the gross weight as well as the tongue weight, the axle ratings, the brake work requirements on both the trailer itself and the tow vehicle. Heavy fryers and then water tanks can overload a single axle pretty quickly. And then tandem axles, if they're not big enough, are effectively useless too. So you have to put a lot more trust into what the builder's doing, that they're doing it right, especially if you don't understand those basic specifications on weight. Now, what's non-negotiable is you want to make sure that the weight is distributed equally. You want to make sure that if you have a top-load refrigerator, that there's a way to make sure it doesn't topple over, and that you're using commercial tires. Don't let bargain rims, which I see on a lot of trailers, derail your season. So what about utilities and power and propane and noise? On a food truck, it's easier for them to have an underbody generator. Less cable management. You just basically turn the thing on. You lift up a hatch, start up the generator, and you're good to go. So it's got a little bit more noise protection as well built in. Trailer, on the other hand, most generators are not built in. They're on the tongue, which means they're open. So you need an inverter generator. And you're probably going to need a bigger generator than what you would need on a food truck. You got to be able to manage the noise and the exhaust. And of course, the health department may have something to say about that as well. If your brand relies on quiet guest conversations at the window, you got to prioritize where that generator is going to be and the decibel ratings in your specific build. No one likes noise. So think about how you're going to handle the noise and whether that contributes to you getting a food truck or a food trailer. You want to think about the climate and the comfort. The food truck has smaller air volume, so it can heat faster, it can cool faster. It's better for extreme temperatures. So if you're in an area where half the year is hot and the other half's cold, food truck makes a little bit more sense. As a food trailer, you have more air volume, but you can add insulation. You can have a reflective roof coating, and you can actually put in dual mini splits if you need to. If your staff is comfortable, it makes it easier for you to have better speed of service. So you want to bear in mind which one makes the most sense as far as how are you going to handle the heat. Now let's talk about permitting, parking, and insurance. If you have a food truck in many cities, there will be rules restricting where trucks can go, and even what time the truck can be on certain streets. Sometimes you'll find it easier to street park in many metropolitan areas, and at other times you just can't street park. Some cities actually set up designated food truck areas. Again, we're talking big cities. If you got a trailer, though, some municipalities will restrict on-street trailer vending because they realize how much space it takes up. So if you have a 20-foot kitchen, you probably got a 12-foot tow vehicle. So that's 32 feet of space. When you have a trailer, some municipalities restrict food trailers being able to vend on the street. You have to be in a parking lot as opposed to the streets. You got to check the local codes. Insurance could be split as well because you've got a commercial tow vehicle that has to have insurance on it Then you have to have commercial property on the kitchen part, the trailer part, and then of course the general liability. So it makes a little bit more complicated insurance package that you're going to need. If there's any doubt on the permitting and the parking and the insurance, before you ever make the decision of which one to buy, talk to those authorities because you don't want a surprise. So let's talk about guest perception. A truck, it feels pro, it feels self-contained, it feels like we're in the city having a food truck wait on us. A trailer, on the other hand, feels like a fairground addition. And it feels like, hey, we're here all weekend because there's more setup involved. It feels more permanent. That's why you see more trailers than you'll see actual food trucks when you go to different events. And then the biggie, the resale. A food truck, the resale buyers worry about mileage. They worry about the emission systems in certain states, and they worry about the service history. So they're not even worried about the kitchen equipment yet. They're worried about the actual vehicle itself. With a trailer, you have a wider buyer pool. The tow vehicle is separate, so if you go to sell it as a package, you still have the option of splitting that package apart. The neat thing about the trailer route is it makes it easier to get kitchen number 2 because you can still work off a single tow vehicle. Now, yeah, it'll be a little clumsy and you got a schedule, but you can still work off of that single tow vehicle. Using a half-ton truck to tow a 10,000-pound kitchen, it's going to be white-knuckle liability, essentially. Scale the tow vehicle first. Make sure the tow vehicle is strong enough to pull whatever size kitchen you plan on getting. The next pitfall is generator mismatch. You buy appliances and then discover that your generator can't carry the peak load. You want to start with a load sheet first, whether you're doing a trailer or a truck. The floor plan creep, and what this means is food trailers invite just one more piece of equipment. We can fit it right here. The empty aisle width has to stay at least 36 inches if you've got 2 people working back to back. Because you know in a food trailer, it gets very tight very quick because the tendency is let's throw a bunch of equipment in here and see how much food we can sell. Don't add on equipment hoping that's going to be the difference in you having a slow day or a busy day. And then the last pitfall, and I talk about this a lot, is we don't have redundancy. We only have one credit card reader. That one goes down and oh my God, I can't process credit cards. I'm in my food truck right now. I have Square. I have 2 different versions of Square. I have the little puck reader. I've got the, I don't even remember what they call it now, but it's the handheld version. I also have PayPal. I got 2 different versions of PayPal. I've got the one where you just input the dollar amount, and then I got the one that's actually a POS where you can put in the full menu. And then I've also got Stripe. So I've got a whole bunch of different ways to process credit cards. If you got propane, you need to have at least 2 tanks. If you have a water pump, you need to have a spare. If you have on-demand hot water, you need to have a spare of that. Don't allow a single piece of equipment to cause you to be closed for the day. And it doesn't matter whether it's a food truck or food trailer. So my bottom line, choose a truck if your goal is speed, mobility, and tight sites. So big city, downtown, for example. Choose a trailer if your goal is capacity, being set up for long periods of time, and you want that flexibility in how the thing is towed. Either one works. You got to choose the best one for you. Thank you guys so much for listening to the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. If you're finding everything helpful that we do, please consider subscribing. If you love what we do, show some support. There's a link in the description to make that happen. Until next time, you guys have a profitable day.